Welcome to the 15th episode of Dialogika. I'm Stephanie Dankilisan.
And I'm Sweden Lee.
And this week we talk about hashtag relationship goals and what we think about relationships in general.
Yeah, as crazy 20-year-old millennials who've been in a few relationships.
So we're just talking about what should relationship goals be, which is healthy and happy. And we talk about practical things that people can do to make their relationships healthier. And talk about how we need to destroy the gender binary in relationships and how this idea of partnership is really important and how to respect other people's emotions or rationality is equally important, and there's no one gender that has a monopoly on rationality.
Or right or wrong. And I think some people might call our perspective as feminist, but honestly, I just think it's healthy.
And
we all just want healthy relationships, guys.
So, yeah, here's to it. But yeah, I guess talking about healthy relationships, not that we are the paragon of knowledge of relationships, but I guess more of what we learned over time in our 25-year-old existence. To our listeners, in this context, we have to acknowledge that we are talking to a more heteronormative monogamous relationships because we can't speak for other kinds of relationships, and that what we're also trying to say is that there's no right or wrong relationships and that all relationships require work. I think regardless of your sexual orientation or what kind of relationship you are, maybe there'll be something useful for you in this conversation.
Exactly.
And that different kinds of relationships have their own challenges as well. Why don't we talk about how to start a relationship?
For me personally, I've always started relationships out of friendships.
Yeah.
If I'm not interested in them as a friend to begin with, how can I be interested in them as a partner?
Yeah.
And the more relationships I had and the more mature relationships I had, I realized that was not an imposition I put on myself. Yeah. It's actually something I want.
I mean, I think you would be the type of person who'd be happy if a girl asked you out, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be totally fine.
I don't think I've asked a guy. I think my current partner thinks I asked him out, but I just wanted to be friends.
Awkward.
And I really don't believe in this whole thing about a guy needs to be super persistent to get out of the friend zone. I think the friend zone doesn't exist.
No. It's either you're interested or not. I think a lot of guys always think a rejection is not a rejection until they've found somebody else.
Yeah.
Right?
I think for me, there's this period where okay, I don't know about this person, so I'll put them in this category of let me get to know this person
zone
enough. And then I'm okay, actually I want to date them, or actually no, actually I want this person as just a friend. Or 3, this person's a creep. Let me get away from here. And usually the person who thinks that they're in the friend zone is in the creep category, not in the actual friend category. Because usually
that's hilarious. Actually, the friend zone is actually the creep zone, guys.
The creep zone. If I actually want to be friends with a guy, it's either I'm interested in or I'm not. You can't persuade me from the creep category to the dating category.
Exactly. The fact that guys would call such a thing as friend zone says a lot about their perspective. It's oh, I'm not the romantic partner.
And it's
I'm the friend.
I'm actually, so sorry. My friendship is so unimportant and unappealing to you. I'm sorry. It's just,
that is somehow secondary.
What is it saying? You don't actually want to be my friend? Okay, cool. Don't be my friend. I have enough friends.
I don't need you.
I'm at the age where I don't need more friends.
Exactly.
If you don't actually want to be my friend, that's cool. But I don't know. I think this idea of a friend zone is really damaging because it's not that girls need to be badgered to be persuaded until the very end.
To be
it's just
swooned.
There's just this there's a very small period in which a girl will decide whether or not she wants to date you or not. Most of the time the girl's decided. If that opinion changes, it could be because the situation in her life dramatically changes, or the guy dramatically changes, and that that could be fine. But
this perspective of a friend zone as if there's secondary level from the romantic zone or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Also demeans friendship.
Oh, that's so true.
You cannot have healthy relationships if you keep thinking, oh man, I'm in a friend zone.
Yeah.
That's just horrible. And sometimes I'm thinking like, wow, the guys who really care about friend zones are the guys who can't have normal friendships with anyone.
Really?
Because they just keep thinking like friends are the second-class citizen in which you can easily dump them as well.
Yeah. That's true, because like I think there's like a devaluation of the value of friendship in current society, in the sense that like you can have very, very strong friendships that are like, I've had really strong friendships that are more important to me than like some relationships.
Yeah.
Like friendships can be a very great avenue for personal growth and support, and I know like my friends will really be there for me in a very true way, you know, for the most part, with more confidence than most relationships, right?
And they often last longer than most relationships. So it's also, I think, this fear of real platonic relationship, right? I think at least some of my guy friends are always like, why are you
friends with so many girls? Or
and
like me.
friends with Stephanie, right? Like, and I'm just like, what? Is that such a big deal? Can't I be platonic friends with someone? Like, of the opposite sex? Like, why are you... Oh, clearly you've never had one.
Like, haven't had a real platonic relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, again, me and Sue, like, just have a regular platonic relationship. We're not dating. Although a lot of people ask that we are because of this podcast. But no, like, I have really strong friendships with, like, some of my male friends. And my partner has, like, strong relationship with some of his female friends. That's perfectly fine. It's perfectly healthy.
And it should be valued.
And it's a sign of a healthy relationship if you can have platonic friendships that do not threaten your relationship.
I want to ask, because I personally have one, but do you have any particular tenets in which you stick by for a relationship? Like, if this doesn't occur in my relationship right now, then there's no way it has a future or whatever?
I think I have to be respected and respect the person back. That is to say that to have a person whose values and whose competency as an individual I respect, and likewise to me, and that we continue to hear each other out and respect each other's feelings and opinions and thoughts and goals in life. And that in that respect that you can communicate well and then be happy.
Okay. For me personally, this was a particular tenet that I think grew out of, you know, maturing and learning more about myself through various relationships.
Yeah.
But it's always this idea that your significant other, a person you want to share your life with, should always somehow get the best out of you.
You mean improve, or?
Yeah, improve you. Like, it shows you
True.
your best self in a way that you probably can't imagine yourself to be sometimes.
So are you saying that the person you're with should help you improve, or that it's a good thing that when you're in a relationship that you are showing your best selves?
I guess in a way it's less about improvement, but it's about showing your best self, in my opinion.
I don't know, really? Because
Yeah.
I feel like relationships sometimes bring out the worst in you.
Which is
because you're
fine.
not being like...
I guess for me...
The idea of how you should actually act. Because I think like when relationships happen and you have a lot of emotions, sometimes that's not the best version of yourself that you can otherwise be.
I guess I'm thinking more about net value. as horrible as it sounds, it's just like, all right, there's going to be bad moments and there's going to be good moments. But overall, you should always seek to improve, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're doing the same things again and again in every relationship, you should really check what you're doing.
Yeah, I think...
And it's not going anywhere.
I think really interesting, because I feel like the relationships where I haven't been relationship goals and haven't been the healthiest and happiest, like the other person will bring out the worst in me, and then that should have been like the check to know that this is not the good relationship for me, right? Like, if it brings out the worst parts of you. That's very true. That's very wise. I've learned something already.
I guess part of it is because I've gone down that route where the worst of me was shown, and I didn't realize I was capable of something like that. And so when you're confronted with the worst of yourself in a way you never imagined was possible, that either shakes you up or puts you back down, in which case, like, you know, you're not gonna improve as an individual. So that's part of it. That's why I'm thinking like, oh my god, I was that low. I need to go the other direction.
That's really interesting, because like when I was talking to one of my friends about this, like how I thought about my relationships after they've ended, and I always put a very like utilitarian spiel over it in the sense of, oh, this person helped me grow intellectually, this person helped me grow emotionally, and he was like,
here's an Excel spreadsheet, guys.
Yeah, like, and he was like, you're really like looking at relationship as if they're a tool to help you grow. And he found that really weird.
Yeah.
But I guess it's pretty weird, and kind of sad to like think of my relationship as like a tool for self-growth, and that kind of makes, well, he was saying it makes him feel like I've used my relationships to like grow myself instead of like for the sake of the relationship itself. But I think what's really useful is like to measure personal growth. Like I think a lot of personal growth does happen when you're in a relationship, and that if you're not growing through your relationships, I think that's like a very missed opportunity.
Yeah. Especially, right, we're talking about relationships that happen in our early 20s when we should be growing.
Yeah. I think there's definitely differences in a relationship when you're like in your late teens and like early 20s versus like
when you're in your 30s or 40s.
Yeah, where your learning has plateaued, I feel like probably.
Yeah. And that's why there are different relationship goals for different demographics.
Yeah.
But I think in our particular experience, if we're not growing at that point, at that crucial point in our development, then we're stagnating, which is as bad as regressing. I think part of society's often stereotypical view of relationships is always categorizing women as emotional and men as rational, and there's no, it's like a Venn diagram that's not a Venn diagram. There's no overlap. You cannot switch sides. You're definitively one side or the other depending on the gender you're in. And I think that's, bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like hands down bullshit. I think both emotion and rationality have equal value depending on the situation, depending on the relationship.
And depending on each individual in their relationship. Like I've been both the emotional one and the super rational one in their relationship, and my partner has been the emotional one or the rational one in their relationship. It doesn't really have a correlation to the gender of the person, and I don't think it should be. And I think people get really trapped and get trapped by this.
It's the perfect example of an Indonesian phrase, jebakan Batman. It's literally
Batman trap.
Yeah, it's a Batman trap. In a sense, like, you just fall into it and you're like screwed.
Yeah.
Because if you're only concerned with that kind of binary, you're never going to see past that and actually converse with the other person. There's this idea that rationality is right and emotional
is not right.
Is wrong. And I'm like, first of all, arguments should not be about right and wrong.
Yeah.
Unless it's really black and white. Most of the times, like, I've been in a long-term relationship where most of the times the fights we have are not so black and white. It's often gray. And what's needed at that moment is not somebody's right or somebody's wrong. Yeah. What was needed was a conversation.
About how
you feel, how I feel.
Yeah. And how to reconcile that. Using logic or using your emotion, like...
It's almost as if emotional has become this taboo word.
Yeah.
That we need to all steer clear of.
Yeah.
And I still remember in one of our episodes where we talked about Terry Crews.
Yeah.
Where he said he needed to become more emotional in order to connect more with his wife.
Yeah.
And I think a part of me does want to reclaim for men this idea that emotional is healthy.
Yeah. I love it when a guy cries. I'm just saying.
Genuinely cries, right?
Genuinely cries,
it's not just like a fake.
So like when tears, I think in general, when it's genuine, it's very, I think, isn't that really beautiful to have someone who like has so many feelings that they cry for you? Like
that they open themselves up, right? And be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of guys, they use rationality as this shield.
Yeah.
In which, like, I'm not going to be vulnerable in front of you. I'm going to be rational.
Yeah.
When in fact, some of the guys I know can be much more dramatic than some of the women I know.
Yeah. And it's basically, if you don't care about how your partner is feeling, you're saying essentially that emotions don't matter and they don't matter. And that's why I think girls or guys can be really upset when, their emotions or their emotionality gets dismissed.
Yeah.
And that's really unfair. And relationships are not about who makes the better case about your relationship. Like, it's not about who can talk about your relationship more more eloquently or more cognizantly, but about trying to see where the other person's coming from. Because I think when you have really good communication, you can always try, see, and empathize where that person's coming from. And that is true relationship goals. And finally, I guess we've talked.
So how do you end it all?
How do you end it all? Okay, way to like go for that.
Yeah, how do you end it all?
I think being really honest about why you think your relationship can't work out anymore is very important. So don't tell lies, even if you think it's gonna make the other person feel better about why you're ending the relationship. Like, that is to say, if you don't love the other person anymore, to say you don't love the other person anymore.
Even if it breaks their heart.
Yeah. And for the most part, we take very different policies on the end of relationships. Yeah. Unlike most things, we agree on everything, but me and Soy have very different policies on like end of relationships, which is, what's your policy, Soy?
I still talk to my exes.
Yeah.
And Steph does not.
I have a zero tolerance policy. I am not friends with any of my exes. And I don't talk to them. Maybe I'd say happy birthday once in but not really.
Not really.
Like, I was talking to Sway, and then his thing was basically he would not really want to date a person who is not okay with him not talking to his exes, and I found that pretty weird.
I think for me, because I've never... In a way, I should probably be more empathetic to the other person because they might see it as a threat, but I never see it as a threat.
Yeah.
Like, when a person transforms from your partner into your friend,
yeah,
that's a good thing for me.
I don't know.
Like I don't want to lose that person. If that person really mattered in my life and the circumstances of the breakup was not something super damaging.
Yeah. But I can also see my partner being not okay with me maybe being friends with my current relationship. And I think I always feel like whatever my current relationship is should be priority over my past relationship. Because I'm not friends with the person. Like, that's the thing, right?
So that's interesting as well because... that means we also kind of end relationships differently. I end it
by being friends
with them. Like, there's always that other option. Well, for you, you're like, bye.
Yeah, bye. See you never.
I'll say happy birthday on Facebook next year.
On your wall. Not even Facebook message.
Publicly. And it's going to be the same generic message I give everyone.
Copy paste. Happy birthday.
Stephanie's cruel.
No, that's not what I do. I think for me, it's just like, I know I'm the type of person that can wax in nostalgia. So if I continue to be friends with my ex and something is going badly in my current relationship or in my life, I can be like, like wishful thinking about the past, right? And I don't think that's healthy for me personally because I'm like quite a nostalgic person and I'm pretty sentimental and I know it'll just like keep opening.
It might drag you down.
Yeah. Also, I think it depends on the relationship, right? So if it's a really emotional, consuming relationship, to convert that as friendship would be much harder.
Yeah.
Do what you need to do.
Do what you need to do, yeah.
Get yourself healthy and happy again. And ask your friends for help. I think that really strengthens your friendships.
Yeah.
I have friendships that wouldn't have been as strong if we didn't go through breakups together or, you didn't lean on the other person for your end of relationship. And I think... that's generally one of the most beautiful points of a relationship is breaking apart is like when you realize you have such beautiful friendships. And that's really what helps you get over it because you're like, oh my God, my friends are the best.
They're still here. And they care about me.
Ultimately, it's like if you're in a relationship, and this is what I really like about my current partner, it's like emphasizing that you're on the same team, and that's team of making it work.
Yeah,
right? Like team make it work. And so the idea shouldn't be you versus your partner, but it's like how you and partner can work it out together, and your relationship is the goal, and that is like the real relationship goal, right? Like having you and your partner working for your relationship together instead of you versus your partner.
Yeah, hence why I think we both like the word partner.
Yeah.
You're on the same side.
You're on the same side.
You're not like
boyfriend versus girlfriend.
Right? Like that's such
That's why we really like using partner instead of like heteronormative terms like boyfriend and girlfriend, because it implies so much more to it. And I do use
creates a division. Like you cannot be partner if you're a boyfriend because you're the guy or whatever, right?
And assume more rational and more valid and more objective, you know. And and like, I mean, we do use it as like placeholder terms, like making it easy for everybody, but it doesn't mean that you can't see past that. And I think it's really important to evolve as a partner as well, because like the really good thing about the usage of partner is like saying that together you can evolve your relationship, because if your relationship doesn't evolve, if it stagnates, it's also something
worrisome.
Yeah, that's something worrisome.
It's recognizing that teamwork that I've always loved about relationships. Like once you start pitting yourself against one another,
that's just like
you're never gonna get very far.
No.
Because there's always going to be a winner or a loser.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be a loser.
Yeah.
Right? We all want to work together for the same thing. And that's something that's hard to recognize when you're younger, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I think growing up and going through relationships that you learn is like, it's about recognizing that it's not you versus your boyfriend or girlfriend. It's how you and your partner can work together to make it work.
And sharing your life and sharing this goal.
Yeah.
With one another.
When it works, it's really beautiful, right? And it's definitely worth it, I think, to try and see how, where it will take you. Thank you so much for listening to us this week. We hope you kind of took away something from it. As always, music credits to Jazzart, Ryan Little, and Broke for Free. And if you haven't followed us on YouTube, our latest channel, you should definitely follow us. We're also still going to be on SoundCloud, but we want to highlight YouTube a bit more. And also, it's a lot easier, I guess, to listen on YouTube than, say, like open up SoundCloud or, go into iTunes and download the podcast. So we're trying to make it easier for you guys to listen, to enjoy the episodes. Yeah. And once again, we always really want feedback. So email us at dialogikapodcast@gmail.com or send us a Facebook message or comment on YouTube. And as always, we'll have resources and links at our website, dialogika.id. And thanks so much for listening.